Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you are not. I am EDJ and we're going to be watching the final part of, overly sarcastic productions Byzantine history. And, this has been a great series because I've just really been learning more about the Eastern Roman Empire and just its triumphs and failures. It's giving me more insight to a period of Rome that I've basically ignored my entire life. So, yeah, what do I know about the fall of the Byzantines? They were conquered by Mehmed II, but, the conqueror, I believe. So, that was the technical death strike of, the Empire of Rome. But before then, I know that in one of the Crusades, was it the third or the fourth? I can't remember, but in one of the Crusades, they sacked Constantinople. They didn't even I don't even think they made it to the Holy Land, They literally just sacked Constantinople, and, that helped bring their ruin much quicker. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, that's just a shame. Um... I don't know. He will cover it. It's like an important thing, right? In terms of their fall and decline, but I always facepalm whenever I think about that. I'm like, oh, guys, why? Why couldn't you just leave them alone? They've been through enough. But I'm telling you, I think Western Europe was just jealous of the Byzantines. When Rome, at least the western portion, fell, a lot of people are obsessed with the idea of being the heir of Rome, right? The next Rome. Everyone wants to resurrect Rome, but the Byzantines existed for, like a long time after. They probably, oh. And some of them were, devalued them, right? Referring to them as by different means. The Byzantines, the Greeks, almost like they didn't want to acknowledge them as Rome. I mean, I don't know. That's the kind of the impression I get. So, I think the part of Western, Europe was kind of jealous. I don't have much backing for this. I'm just, speculating and spitballing, so, and again, I'm ignorant towards the Byzantine era, but, I get the impression that the Western part of Europe just was not happy, and they probably didn't fully care once Byzantine fell. The Eastern Roman Empire. Once they fell, they were like, I wonder who's the heir of Rome now, Oh, man. Let's watch the video. I'm sorry, I'm just talking a lot. I'm really enjoying this series. It's revitalized me. So if you want to watch the original video, the link is in the description. With that said, and without any further ado, let us see the end of Rome. The fall of the Byzantine Empire.
While the Roman Empire in the west was getting gobsmacked into oblivion in 476 AD, the eastern half of the empire, with its capital of Constantinople, was, by comparison, doing pretty great. For one, they existed, so that's a plus, and the Byzantine Empire evolved into a gorgeous gold-coated hybrid of classical Greco-Roman and medieval Christian culture. But unfortunately for our biz boys, shiny mosaics and ginormous domes couldn't prevent the infinite abyss of disasters that lay in wait over the millennium to come. Between Persians, Goths, Arabs, Turks, Normans, and the more than occasional civil war, it's safe to say that the Byzantines could not catch a break. And the latter medieval period continues this distinctly Promethean trend where they suffer a constant and arduous evisceration by eagle without ever actually dying from it. As we will indeed see in just a moment, our favorite golden disaster empire managed to keep on thriving and defying the specter of death despite even the most garbage of circumstances. So, to see how the Byzantine Empire procrastinated its own death and, even then, kind of slipped past the deadline, let's do some history. Now, this video's timeline will start, incidentally, with the fall of the empire, about 2 centuries ahead of the typical 1453. I know, we're making great time, because long before the Ottomans ever enter the picture, the Byzantines were struggling to coexist with the Italian merchant empires they were growing so reliant on. Venetian and Genoese traders tussled in the Latin neighborhoods of Constantinople like they were street gangs in Shakespearean Verona, but the Byzantines poured—
Didn't that inspire Romeo and Juliet? I could be wrong, but I think, a feud between two groups kind of inspired the whole Romeo and Juliet plot. I think it was these guys. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but I think I had heard that somewhere.
the proverbial Greek fire on the problem by arresting and then murdering tens of thousands of Latin citizens in the city. Bad look. This giant yikes was compounded by the baffling ineptitude of the ruling Angelus dynasty, whose constant infighting left the empire woefully mismanaged. This got infinitely worse when the powers of Europe launched Crusade numero 4 on the promise of this time it might actually work. To the ensuing surprise of precisely nobody, it got off to a rocky start, with their understaffed army getting excommunicated by the Pope before they even left the Adriatic Sea. But the light at the end of the Crusaders' tunnel was Prince Alexios Angelos, who offered Byzantine military support in exchange for reinstating his deposed father. So here we see the Angeloi ignoring the key rules from Alexios Komnenos' declassified crusading survival guide. Rule 1. Under any circumstances, do not ask Crusaders for help. We've been through this before. It is not worth it. Rule 2. If the Crusaders arrive anyway, transport your Crusaders across your empire as fast as humanly possible. Do not let them get any ideas. Rule 3. While your Crusaders are inside your empire, never, under any circumstances, provoke your Crusaders. They are armed, violent, and prone to fits of disproportionate rage. Yet, in 1204, the Angeloi failed spectacularly on every point, and spying an opportunity to quit while they were ahead, the Crusaders simply sacked Constantinople. Venice deliberately instigated the pillaging, but by this point the Byzantines really should have known better than to tee them up. So, the sack. Beyond being a rough approximation of literal hell on earth for the Byzantines unfortunate enough to be on the receiving end, the Crusaders desolated the art and architecture of the city. Venetians had the good sense to steal the priceless relics of Constantinople for the glory of the Republic, instead of mindlessly burning and or murdering everything and or one. But whether trashed or taken, Constantinople still ended up ruined, and the rest of the empire was next on the to thieve list. Venice, the crafty little devils, chose to swipe off the islands of the Aegean, while the Franks installed the Latin emperor on the Byzantine throne.
Oh my goodness. Yo, that's gonna be one of the most heartbreaking events of history, right? People always talk about, like, the Library of Alexandria and many other, you know, very tragic events, but I think, like, the one that hits me the deepest is definitely, yeah, this, because it's just a complete disaster on all fronts, right? Just like, they just went in and completely... It is hard to watch. It like hurts my soul, especially how far we've come with Rome in this channel. We've covered so much of Roman history from so many historical YouTubers, and now we're here at... This is technically... Granted, I know you'll still see my uploads of, like, Caesar series, but I finished those series a long time ago. Like, they're just scheduled uploads weekly, but I'm done with most of the Rome series you see on this channel. So this is technically, like, the end, even though there'll still be many more videos for the remainder of this year. But, yeah, it's kind of like, oh, I've been on this weird journey with Rome for a long time. It's just hard to watch it die like this, you know?
And carved up the Greek mainland. On paper, the Byzantine Empire ends right here. The capital was now kaput, and the Aegean basin, which so long preserved the Greco-Roman world, went poof. But even the end of the empire couldn't shake that damn Hellenic persistence, as Byzantine nobles in survival mode quickly laid out successor states in the wake of the Crusade, in Trebizond, Nicaea, and Epirus. Each became a haven for Greeks fleeing their new Frankish overlords in mainland Greece, whose Latin empire proved to be little more than a post-Crusade money pot. But the Franks quickly got bored by the prospect of actually governing, and soon became weaker than the assorted Byzantines they had so recently stomped. Are we really surprised? The three Hellenic states started out on the defensive, to put it mildly, but some shifty strategy and good old-fashioned luck gave Nicaea a leg up. After spreading out over the western Anatolian coast and gaining a foothold in Thrace and Macedonia, the Nicaeans reconquered Constantinople kind of by accident. While a small army scouted around the city to suss out its defenses, they learned that the Frankish army was out on campaign, so the Byzantines snuck through a small break in the wall, opened a gate, and then took the city. For all the disasters to befall the Byzantines, it's only fair that the RNG just this once works out in their favor. Though Emperor Michael
They finally caught a break, right?
Paleologos soon found his work cut out for him.
Dude, I'm telling you, like I've said it so many times on this channel, but the Romans have grit, they have perseverance, They have tenacity unrivaled by any other nation that I can think of. And even now, the fact that they could rebound from that, oh man, there's just so much to admire about these people, man. It's just wow, look at that. They like literally came back from that. That's insane.
As the city had hardly been cleaned since the Crusade half a century earlier, and sliding so close to death's door prevented the Byzantines from cutting quite as imperial a figure as they used to. Still, it was better than the alternative. As we've seen, it was hard enough to defend the Byzantine dominion back in the good old days, but with the emperor now presiding over a kingdom and a capital that were both hollow shells of their former selves, clever diplomacy was the sharpest weapon in the arsenal. Fair to say the more impressive achievement was not in retaking Constantinople, but in keeping it. As ever, the rivalry between Venice and Genoa made this difficult, as their schoolyard slap fight had a conspicuous habit of always going down in Constantinople. And, of course, there were a few strategic flubs, such as when the Byzantines hired a band of Catalan mercenaries who went rogue at the slightest provocation and claimed the Duchy of Athens for the next 7 decades. But even this wasn't the worst mercenary customer experience the Byzantines would endure, as, in 1343, the royal treasury was too thin to pay for Venetian help, so the former Empress Anna pawned what she had, which was the empire's crown jewels. So, despite selling Constantinople's royal honor for some warships, Anna lost her war, which, I should say, was a civil war.
That sucks. Imagine giving away the royal jewels of the empire. Dude, that sucks. Big L, Anna, big L.
Against the empire. So, when acting Emperor John Cantacuzene and his wife Irene were officially coronated in 1347, the crowns were copies made of tinted glass, because the originals were off in Venice, like every other Byzantine artifact. Yet, somehow, despite all that, hardly the worst thing to happen in the 1340s, because, as we know, plague. Man, it does not let up. Population is...
Man, they are getting their butts kicked. It's like the world is literally trying its hardest to kill Rome now, right? Oh dear.
Ravaged, economy in ruins, let us not dally here, friends, we all know the drill, and this would provide a golden opportunity for the Ottomans over in Anatolia, who quickly made it clear they were the next big Muslim power. So, about a century after the reconquest of Constantinople...
Oh my goodness. Every time it shrinks, I just, like, a part of my soul hurts, like, oh, you know? Dude, look at that. Compared to what they once were... This is hard to look at, dudes. They're so tiny now. They're just a city and a few islands. Oh my goodness. And the fact that they are in the heart of the Ottomans, right? Oh my goodness, right?
There were 4 fundamental and unavoidable problems to the empire's long-term health. The Ottomans were gaining strength and pushing west, Venice and Genoa turned the Aegean into their personal battlefield, and the complete lack of a Byzantine economy meant they were fully dependent on those two for trade. Then, to cap it off, we've got the endless internal power struggles and succession crises. Let's not kid ourselves, this is still the Romans we're talking about here. With worries like...
Yeah, the Romans... Did they ever nail the succession crisis? I feel like most of the Empire era was everyone not being able to have good successions. Oh my goodness. Maybe that's the one thing the Romans were never good at, having, like, great successions. There's always a succession crisis with the Romans, I feel.
Like that, fully rebuilding the empire was a no-go, so the Byzantines picked their battles and bought their time, which meant putting themselves under the protection of the Ottomans. But, ever defiant in the face of peril, giving up was never an option. While the empire was shrinking down to just Constantinople, things looked shockingly different on the other side of the Aegean. Right when Michael Palaiologos was tripping ass first into retaking Constantinople in 1261, he also had the good fortune of capturing the Latin prince of Achaia in a battle, and ransomed him back in exchange for a few castles down in the Peloponnese. They weren't much, but they were well fortified among the mountains, much like the ancient Spartans had been way back when. Over the next 2 centuries, this distant Byzantine outpost in Laconia became a prosperous corner of the Hellenic world, as Greeks from the Morea and beyond flocked into the city of Mistras to try and pick up where the empire left off. So in the 13 and 1400s, Mistras became a haven of Byzantine culture and scholarship. And I mean, look, I'm not gonna pretend like one decently well-off corner of the Greek world is just on par with the empire pre-Crusade, because of course it's not. But I will come to bat for the Morea as a paragon of that Romano-Hellenic perseverance, to keep on trying even after everything seemed lost. No, I'm not getting sentimental, that's just marble dust in my eyes, shut up. Anyway, like with Constantinople, keeping this territory safe required a gentle diplomatic touch, but the game was a hell of a lot easier with water on 3 sides and mountains on the 4th. And with Constantinople sweating javelins at the sight of incoming Ottomans, it became clear that the Morea could handle itself, so it gained autonomy in 1349. By the early 1400s, they expanded outside Laconia into almost the entire Peloponnese and briefly had authority over Attica. The Byzantine Morea also had a practical benefit to Constantinople, as emperors in waiting got their political training as governors down in the Peloponnese, to the point where the last emperor, Constantine XI, was actually crowned in Mistras rather than up in the capital. Uh-oh, did I say last? Yeah, about that. The thing with the Ottomans is they didn't stop. Despite the Empire's best efforts and the too little too late help of European Crusader armies that disintegrated on impact, it was clear the show was wrapping up. By 1453, Sultan Mehmet finally had the means to take the city of Constantinople, and by means, I mean cannons the size of a house.
Goodness.
After blockading the Bosphorus and cutting off the city's line of supply, the Ottomans blasted open the Theodosian walls and poured in. Emperor Constantine is said to have given a rousing speech to his countrymen before charging
Yes, I've heard of the final Constantine speech. I've seen it portrayed, I've read excerpts of it, I've seen it portrayed in like television. You can like look it up on YouTube. It's actually a very popular thing I've noticed, with many views about this man's final words, you know, his speech, you know, and yeah, it's just, he went out like a true Roman. He went out fighting. He was not gonna outlive the empire, you know? And he just went out like, you know, the best you could ask for the final emperor of Rome.
Where the fighting was fiercest, never to be seen again. After the battle, the Sultan toured the city and was so awed by the beauty of Hagia Sophia that he preserved it and converted it into a mosque, rather than blasting it and starting from scratch, as was more often the move. But even after this, he said, moving the goalpost back for dramatic effect, it wasn't the end for the Byzantines. For one, the Ottomans continued the time-honored love of ultra-domed architecture, but also the Venetian Republic's outlying territories in the Aegean and Ionian Seas were majority Greek, further preserving Hellenic culture for centuries. Venetian Crete later became a beacon for art and scholarship that mixed the Italian Renaissance with traditional Hellenism. So despite the earth-shattering treachery of crusading Venetians, the painfully ironic end result is that Venice played a vital part in the long-term preservation of Byzantine culture. Man, that is uncomfortable to say out loud. And though Crete fell to the Ottomans in 1669, nice, the Ionian Islands remained stubbornly non-Ottoman until they became part of modern Greece, but that is really pushing the timeline, so let's wrap up. The standard question of the Byzantine Empire is essentially, why didn't they die way the hell sooner when everything was always on fire? Because, on one level, yeah, the Byzantine story is over 1,000 straight years of the map getting smaller, but that time-lapse would have been swift if they didn't persevere. Let's not forget they had over 1,000 years. By some metrics, that's the longest empire, and it got that far because at no point in Byzantine history was it too late to care or too late to try, because they believed that they had something about their state, their people, their faith, and their identity that was worth living for and dying for. And even when the last mini golden age was a distant memory, that tireless determination to do their best kept them going in even the most dire circumstances to—
Again, Rome, it's just, they didn't stop, man. Their perseverance is second to none. Their tenacity is just, that's like probably the most important aspect of Rome, and that what they had, you know, how they could last so long and become probably the most influential empire in the world. Just nothing but respect, man.
To create the next mini golden age. So when we look back at the empire to ask why the Byzantines kept going after Rome falls in 476, it's for the same reason as when Constantinople fell in 1204, but those Byzantines kept going. Thank you so much for watching. This video—
Another great series now finished, guys. This has been great. I love this. This was awesome. And yeah, that gives me so much context as to the fall of the Byzantines, but so much more appreciation towards Rome. Just one of the best, you know, one of the best groups to ever like walk the earth, right? One of the greatest empires. Just GG Rome. F in the chat for Rome, guys. You lasted a long time. Despite the odds, you made it. And yeah, just another great, really great video. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Bye, everyone.